Your first book was very much about Biafra. When I was at university, Biafra was our cause.
Today we are going to be talking about
that wasn't caught up
the great
in what was happening in the
African writer, fiction writer, the lady Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. On top of that, I'm going to be reminding you, the type of books she wrote. In 1998, she wrote a book called For Love of Biafra. And 2009, she wrote a book called One World. And she wrote a book called Americana. She wrote a book called Half of the Yellow Sun. She also wrote a book called Purple Hibiscus, etc. She wrote so many books, and in Americana, it is all about her journey, or the journey of the character you found in the book to the United States. When she was speaking with the book forum, where she titled Memory, Witness, and War, with her talk with Book Forum, there was a question that was posed to her, received several backlashes on this specific book on love for Biafra. Due to those backlashes that I saw that she received for writing for the love of Biafra, that is the reason why I am taking you down to the memory lane. When she actually spoke to the book forum called BF, they titled it Memory, Witness, and War. And I will go straight to the point on Memory, Witness, and War. The book forum asked Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, how can a person write so personally about the Biafra War from such a distance of time and place? Chimamanda's response is very, very interesting. She said, the reason I could write this book is because I didn't experience the war, but writing the book was an intensely emotional experience. So I became acutely aware of how the war is very much a memory for me. I would write section and be happy with it, and then later I would cry thinking about what happened to these people. It was a strange experience because I would never written anything like it before. Sometimes I have a sense of detachment from my work, but not with Half of a Yellow Sun. Now listen to the interesting story about what the book forum asked Chimamanda. Are the people of Nigeria still grieving and processing the war? This is her response. A lot of people haven't dealt with it at all. In part because we haven't dealt with it as a collective nation. Nobody learns about Igbo culture in high school. That is what we talk about when we talk about fighting the colonial agenda for scrapping your history away from your curriculum. That is exactly what she's talking about there. Now she said again, you are told that a war happened and nothing else. Igbo people have a sense that we are supposed to pretend nothing happened. Now there is a new Biafra movement that's been going on for about 10 years. Mostly it's the poorer people in Igbo villages and rural areas who adopt things from Biafra and fly the banner, the Biafran flag. When I told people I was writing about the war, they thought I was crazy. They would say, you are just looking for trouble. Just imagine that they told her she's looking for trouble and she is encouraging violence. That is part of the backlash she received. I still get a few angry emails from people who feel she shouldn't have written about the war. Is that not being scared and not being realistic about what's going on around you? Now they said to her, so in that regard, the only reason why I believe that people were giving her backlash or were encouraging her not to write about the book It is because people are scared of the reality. The reality is that the war happened and it was Biafra that was on the receiving end of that war, because Britain and every other some of the European countries, including the US, they were aware of that war and no one is held accountable. So they are not encouraging people talking about the war. That's why when we are agitating, no one want to pay attention. They actually want to sweep it under the carpet, including the social media platforms we are using. They are actually making sure that our voices are not heard. That is the reason why they are censoring us. But that's by the way. Let me continue to tell you about this story. She said again, but then I do get presently surprised by many people who are asking questions about the period because of the book. People whose parents had been through the war and never said anything to their kids. Sometimes I get stupidly emotional. I did a reading in Nigeria and a woman came up to me and said, because of your book, I can finally talk about what happened to me and I thank you. And then I started crying. She started crying. So that is part of the response she gave to the book forum. Now the second question that was thrown at her, were your parents able to talk with you? But in this regard, I am going to actually jump that one for the sake of time. The third question that is very more interesting is that, do wartime resentment still fester among the Igbo and Hausa people? Chimamanda response says, yeah, that's still there. I think it's less so with my generation. In Nigeria, there are people who believe that the Igbo want to dominate and take things from us. That kind of thing, but I'm hopeful. My generation is not as interested in ethnic resentment, although we are aware that they exist. So that was her response. The most important thing that I can tell you that will solve this problem of war, the scar is already there because the war happened. We can never say never that it didn't happen. It did happen. So I think now there is something, the last but not the least thing she said here is that, do you feel sense of displacement being educated and celebrated abroad? She responded to the book forum, no, my friend teased me about being a rock star in Nigeria. I've never felt, and I know I never will feel. America, okay, I never would feel. American, I am a Nigerian who spent time in the USA. And of course, she is a rock star in Nigeria. She is a Pan-African because in all her book, it is all representation of African and the culture and the truth about Africa. So that is a short story about her book, For the Love of Biafra, or for Love for Biafra. So now let's talk about that video you just saw, the flash during this beginning of this video. Now it talked about the UK people learning about Biafra. Even in UK, why were they so interested in learning about Biafra? And at the end of the day, they are not actually reminding the UK, the people or the UK government, that this war and the agitation is there again. Why can't they solve it? That is the reason why So let us actually talk about, reflect on the things that the interview talked about. Then you go ahead and watch the video of this interview. The person who was the host of this interview, he talked about the UK actually learning about Biafra war, and the first book she wrote about Biafra. It was the first book that Chimamanda wrote. They talked about it in the book. She was actually swinged and to speak out of line, but she stood her ground, and she is a very, very intelligent, wonderful person that hailed from all the way from Biafra land. She is a woman that is supposed to be celebrated. I have never went deeper to her work that I went now. Of course, she is a fighter. She is a person who is actually making sure that the story of Africa is heard from both sides. There is a book that talked about hearing the both sides of the story. and she talked about racial differences, skin color. Nigeria is very diverse. The way she actually talked about the US, different between Lagos and the US, both are diverse, but she talked about diversity is different because in the US it is about color diversity, in Nigeria it is about culture diversity. So she made a lot of sense there. Black woman hair is political. She talked about black woman's hair because so the black women are being prejudiced against because of their hair texture. That is part of the colonized mentality of people. They actually classify a black woman with the type of hairstyle they are actually having, which is actually putting our women under pressure. But she talked about it actually, but it is very, very important that it is time for us to decolonize this, our great sister. This is our actually a Biafran intellectual, a Biafran intellectual. She actually got our message known to the world. Of course, the world is full of evil people. They will always try to actually censor what they want to bring to the other people, and actually what they don't want to bring to the other people. They control everything. They control the media. But if you haven't seen that book, go and grab your copy. I don't know, I saw something that the book was dismissed, but the book is still in Amazon. I think the book, it doesn't cost a lot. It costs around it is not that costly. It costs around maybe it's less than $38. So you can grab your copy and talk about those books. The book of our sister Chimamanda, it is quite interesting book that you will never want to miss any of its character, especially if you want to watch read about the Americana. But most importantly, we are Biafrans. We are also going to actually target the Biafra book, and we will continue to read it and support our own, because it is time for us to start supporting our own. Now listen to this video and see how beautifully intelligent she is, how she actually held it there. She knows her story. That is how to know somebody who understands her story. She's a great woman, and I give her this, I give her this, I give it to her. She is a great woman. In my next life, I am going to be a Biafran person, because we are great people, and the greatness of Biafra is what the world does not want the other people to experience it. They don't want us to see the light and on the other side, because they know that if Biafra is to be free, we are going to change the fate of Africa and the fate of the world. We are peculiar people above all. Let's see this video and you will learn something from it and understand how courageous, brilliant, intelligent she is, and you will give her your support and actually a respect to Chimamanda Ngozi Chukwuadichie, the namesake of my child. Salute, my dear sister.
Chimamanda, you live in Nigeria and in America, and that very much informs this book. Are you reluctantly in America, enthusiastically in America? Would you rather be in Nigeria or rather be in America?
Somewhere between enthusiastically and reluctantly. I like America, but it's not mine. Right? So I like that there's regular electricity. I like that the internet is fast. I like so I like all of those sort of convenient things about America, but it's not mine. I'm not as Nigeria is home for me. Nigeria is where I care about. Right? But I also like that I can leave Nigeria. So
it is very busy.
It can get very busy. So it's sort of home, but I like that I can leave home.
I liked very much, because I've lived in America myself, that you describe it as a very rich uncle who doesn't really know who you are, but all the same, you can't help feeling fond of her.
America that's how I feel about the US. In some ways, I feel a certain gratitude, because somebody was asking me recently why I didn't come to the UK to go to school, and I said the reason is America gives you money. I said if you do well, you kind of expect that you'll get a scholarship somewhere. which isn't the case here. So, I feel grateful.
Your first book was very much about Biafra. When I was at university, Biafra was our cause. There wasn't a university campus that wasn't caught up in what was happening in the Civil War. This book is about these two cultures. It's about somebody who fell in love in Nigeria, but then fell in love in America, and all those tangles. Is it a love story, or is it a love story between two countries?
I think it's both, actually. I'm very interested in the different permutations of love. So it's and in some ways I think that for me, because all of my work is writing is very much in some ways about vanity. It's really about you, isn't it? And for me, it's sort of trying to make sense of America has been such a part of me because I left Nigeria when I was 19. I was educated in the U.S. There's certain things that I find myself, I spell the American way now to my father's absolute horror. And so there's a connection there for me to America, but also there's a strong and permanent pull of Nigeria. And I think this book is about that push and pull, that I like America, but really, where do I want to spend most of my time? Nigeria.
But then it distills into the question of the human love between each other. And that's a tangled business. I mean, here's this young girl who is in love with this boy, but leaves, remains in love, but then falls in love with the American boy. Why did you want to get into this deep stuff?
Because that's what happens in life, isn't it? I mean, I think, we love, don't we? We love, well, I don't know about other people, but I think that human beings have the ability to love different people in different ways, and sometimes even at the same time. So Ifemelu has a different kind of love for Obinze. But then she goes to the US and life goes on and you meet people and she finds a different kind of love. And I think that it's a relationship that makes her grow. So I think it's very important for her, for her becoming fully herself.
Is it a more superficial love given the pace of America?
I'm not quite sure.
Well,
I can't help thinking that's such an English thing to say about America.
You think, I would be tempted to think that in Nigeria it would be a more organic love because they shared the same country. Once she got to America, she was having love on an American basis.
I don't know what that is. I think maybe the difference is that I think cross-cultural relationships can be, they take on a different, there's something to them. In other words, it's easier when you share the same culture. Because then when you don't...
But it's more intoxicating when you don't.
There's a heightened sense when you don't. Because now there's the layer of sort of...
mystery.
Yeah. The exotic, the unknown, the sort of learning about something entirely new because you love somebody else. And I think she has that with her American boyfriend.
But if you can stage these love affairs in these two such different worlds, why is immigration such a problem? Why is the experience of race so testing when it's possible, as you describe in your book, for two people of different cultures to have such an intense love affair?
You know what? I think human beings will connect, right? But what the structures that make it difficult. I think that the U.S. in particular, and I talk about it because that's where I know fairly well. I think that the way that America is set up makes it really difficult for people of different races, particularly white people and black people, to connect. That there's such a segregation, and not just in the way people live, but in the way people think about race. So I think that's why. But you find that when people...
But it's a very multicultural society in Lagos too, for example, or in Nigeria,
but it's a
elsewhere.
different thing, though. It's a different thing. And this is why when I talk about race, what I mean, maybe we should change the terminology and talk about skin color. Because by race, I don't mean ethnicity.
I thought we wanted to stop talking about skin color.
No, we can't stop talking. I mean, this is the other thing I think this book is about, the idea that there's no such thing as color blindness. I think it's, I think it's just a... I think that to insist on color blindness is somehow to refuse to engage because, skin color really affects the way people experience the world, and we can't deny that, right? But I think when I say that, what I mean is that sometimes people conflate race and ethnicity, So in Nigeria, Nigeria is very diverse, but not racially diverse. I mean, not skin color diverse. We're ethnically diverse, and that has its own challenges. But in some ways, it's quite different from race.
I can't avoid the obsession with hair, partly because I share it. I mean, my mother didn't have any hair. She suffered from alopecia totalis, which means you have none at all. And you are obsessed with hair. Straight hair, box braids, cornrows, dreadlocks, afros, twists, raucous curls, kinky coils, and TWAs, teeny weeny afros. Where is all the... Well, I can see that you have very interesting construct there. Where does it come from?
I don't know. Wait, but did your mother wear... So she wore a wig?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
Did she wear different wigs, or did she sort of wear the same wig? And did she...
She had several wigs, and they would have to go away to be reconfigured from time to time and come back. In brown
know?
boxes, which we were never told what was inside.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So people didn't know that it wasn't her hair?
No.
That's interesting.
But that is your hair. Well, part of it may not be.
I see you know a bit about black hair. The tips are not. The tips are, it's what's called Afro kinky hair.
That's Afro kinky.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. But it's very interesting that so many elements of you are
Yes.
woven into this book.
Yes.
And hair is absolutely one inescapable factor, isn't it?
Yes.
And are you somehow a lesser woman if you don't go for this kinky whatever?
Of course not. Of course not. Of course not. But I did want to write about hair because it's not just, I mean, it's hair, and I'm interested in hair on just the sort of very hair level, but also just...
Is hair a conversation?
It's a political thing.
Is it?
It is.
A statement?
Black women's hair is political.
Are you
And
making a statement?
I don't intend to, but I do.
You have it imposed on you, the statement.
You really do. By walking in somewhere with my hair like this, people make assumptions. They're immediate assumptions. If my hair isn't straight, people can assume that you're either, they might think you're an angry black woman, or they might think you're very soulful, or they might think you're an artist, or they might think you're vegetarian. I mean, there are all kinds of things
Or somebody likes a lot of time in the hair salon.
That too. Well, but no, the straight hair requires a lot of time as well. But, I'm just interested in hair as a means of talking about other things. What does society tell us is beautiful? Because, you look at women's magazines, and these things matter. I mean, these things matter. And we look at what's on television, and what does sort of the larger society say is beautiful? It's straight hair. And so you have young girls who are growing up with that in their heads. And it's something that I want to talk about and want to address and want to challenge. And
Now, this book took you 5 years to write. That's going some, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Why does it take so long? Because of the complexity of the weave, rather like your hair, or because it takes you that time to develop the relationships, the complex interactions between the cultures?
Yes.
Or because you're an academic and doing something else?
No, not really, no. I mean, writing and because it just takes a while. I mean, I suppose I'm not one of those writers who can crank them out. It takes a while for me. I need to, I'm a slow writer. It takes me a while to just be happy with the sentence. And I do a lot of revising and rewriting. I'm a bit obsessive about that.
So it's about the craft, at least as much about
It's about the
content.
craft, yes. It's also about, for me, the sentence is as important as the character. I'm very interested in my characters. I want to believe them. I want to know them. So I spend quite a bit of time. I wish I didn't.
But therefore, when it comes to an end and it's ready for publication, it's a bit of a letdown.
It's very difficult for me to let go. I haven't quite let go, and I still want to make changes to that book.
It's a bit too late now, it's out. Chimamanda, thank you very much indeed for talking to us.
Thank you. Thanks.